we are doing this, there is a science to our madness in a way, and that was, how do we get the framework together? One is the brand, right? We talked about branding in that kind of first couple sessions. The second was like, okay, let's get the website organized and how we do integrate or put your property site should all be going to your websites, right? You got to have those cookies. And again, this is so you can slowly market. One of the things that Chirag talked about in his playbook is like, or we hear from agents is like, don't do newsletters. It's not that you're not supposed to do newsletters. Like, it's just tactically, can you do them just a little bit different so that they have some type of personality to them and they don't come off as just super generic, like I'm sending this out to 2,000 people. So I think that was what Chirag is doing. All these tactics that we're giving you are stuff to hopefully make you better than the average agent. And the nice thing about Compass is the average Compass agent is already super elevated, and you're actually even more elevated because you're working with Chirag and you're saying like, hey, I want to be better, better, better. That's all you can ask of yourself. So, I know the market's a little wonky right now. Like, take a deep breath. You're going to get through it, and we're going to give you like super tactical stuff that we're doing. And so hopefully this works for you. And some of this, what I like is Sydney kind of shares like what she's doing for all the top agents across the country through Upgrade, through her marketing team. Some of those tactics, mine are similar because I use Sydney, but some are my own and just ideas. So that's what we're going to do today. Is we really thought in the advent with Atlanta coming, if you type me in the chat, we can find out if you're going to Atlanta. Let us know. There's hopefully a few of you that are going. If you don't have a ticket, don't worry about it. There's so many things. I've seen a ton of tickets on Workplace, but also you can just go. And just because you're not going to the seminars during the day, I would say about half the agents that go there aren't even attending the seminars. They're signed up, they bought a ticket, but they're really there to network. And I thought one thing Sydney wanted to share with you is some of the things that she's noticing about the retreats. So
so today we're going to talk about events, and I think it will be a good segue because next week in Chirag's course, you guys are going to be talking about how to set up your own event for your clients. But today we're going to talk about events that you go to, and the retreat specifically, since it's a month away or 2 months away. So yeah, Butch and I are just going to brainstorm. And if you guys have any best practices for the retreat, definitely pop them in here. Today's going to be a lot more of a brainstorm rather than a presentation. But we're just going to go back and forth on different things that we've seen, the good and the bad, when it comes to the retreats and taking advantage of it, and just and major events in general.
So with I thought you were going to talk about the drinking thing, but we'll get to that. We'll start with the positive first. So we'll go positive. So one of the things tactically that I want to talk about right now, and we're doing this a little bit out of order, but everyone's back to school, whether you have kids or not. All these people are coming back from summer. Some schools have already started. A lot of public schools have already started. In San Francisco, the public school system started like 3 weeks ago. We decided, like, what's a cool little event that we could do to get people back together? One of the things that we've noticed is that everyone kind of wants to reconnect, and we've been like away from each other for about a couple years. And everyone's like, you go first, right? Like, everyone's in that kind of pause thing. Like, I want to do it. Like, if you call for a dad's group or anything like that, like, everyone shows. Like, it's hilarious. So what we're doing is like a back to school fun. There's a park that's brand new in San Francisco. It's called Tunnel Tops, and it's a playground. And so what we thought is, hey, let's do an event there. And if it gets too big, it will never happen. So we started throwing out brainstorming ideas, right? And we're like, we'll get food trucks and we'll do this, and we're going to set up big tents, and we're going to get a couple vendors. And all of a sudden I was like, this is going to take 6 months to plan. So then we said, nope, stop, reset. How do we do this as low impact, as easy as possible? If people want to show, they show. If they don't, they don't. I called 2 people that I work with, a wealth manager, and I called an architect. And I said, do you want to chip in like $1,000 for booze or koozies. So what we're going to do, because it's illegal to have booze at the park, we're doing koozie coolers, and everybody on the team is going to have their own name on a koozie cooler. And that way at the party, you can walk around and see who's with who, right? Like, oh, so we thought it would be like a good little mingling thing, but on there, it's going to say the Butch.
Just to take a step back, Butch has a team where there's agents on his team. So the people that are invited by Butch will have like the Butch koozies, and the people that are invited by McCullough will have the McCullough koozies, and it'll be kind of fun, and people can network and get to know each other. And then the wealth manager and the architects are there to just like meet everyone, but also to sponsor the event. So Butch is smart in the fact that every single event he ever puts on is basically sponsored by someone else. So that's definitely a best practice. Even huge events that we've put on, like at the retreat, like $20,000 events, have been sponsored by someone else. So I think that's definitely a best practice that you guys could all take when doing your own events. Because I think when talking to agents, that is something that holds a lot of agents back, on top of the planning of it all, but it's also paying for it all. Because if you want to have a super successful event, they end up being pretty expensive. So that is something that Butch really focuses on when we put events together.
Yeah, but here's something we do really fast, really easy, and we planned it for September 18th. We're just starting it right now. So we got this guy that does these big bubbles for kids, right? We ordered a couple cornhole things. We're doing it at a park. It's just getting people back together. Pop-up tent. I'm bringing some coolers. Again, it's not elaborate, but we have a couple of sponsors. We get everybody to be invited. It's just a casual doing. We like paperless post as an invitation tool. And again, I want to invite my top 100 people, especially the ones that have families or kids. Like, hey, I just want to get us back together. I want to share some friends with you. This is a really neat way to get people back top of mind for September. Hey, there's lots of cool things that we're putting together. I'm just getting together a good group. Another thing that you can do is if you're a dad, you can assemble a dad's group. I put together a dad's group with the dads at my school. And it was amazing. Like all of a sudden, like 20 guys are rushing up to me going, I want in. We do it every Monday, once a month. And it was so funny because the wives heard about it and they got mad. And they're like, we're doing ours on Wednesday. And now we're doing it. And it's the mom's group and ours is going to be so much better. So now we're in this, whatever you call it. We're in a war of with the moms. We're going to lose for sure. And but anyway, these are all just little tactical things. If you don't have kids, no worries. Like think of like, hey, I'm going to do this like crypto party. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency or, bringing in like I have great ideas for you. There's a company called Proppy. They're leading the way in title. They're going to change title forever. But, you get one of those guys to speak at an event, get one of your friends that's a hedge fund guy and say like, let's get a couple guys together, let's plan an event. Like, so you can do that now. And I think September is a great time because everybody was traveling for the summer. So I just want to remind you, put a small, if you like dogs, like, again, if that's your brand is dogs, like, hey, we're getting all the dogs together and let's come check out this new dog park.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the main thing to think about here is that when agents put together events, I think a lot of them put it together centered around real estate. Like, come hear me talk about the market. Like, that's not interesting. That's not fun for people, like they can Google that. So have your event be about something else. Like Butch's is about back to school, last hurrah with the kids. Like you guys could do something else that's on brand for you. That's not necessarily about real estate.
Exactly. Whatever your brand is. So remember when we talk about brand, it's like be authentic. And Chirag talks a lot about being authentic. Like, and it was funny, right? So this agent goes, I'm not going to do video, right? Look at her roll her eyes already. I'm not going to do video because video's not authentic. That's not what Chirag is saying. Chirag is saying, like, don't talk about dogs if you hate dogs. In your video, don't be like, I'm going to go to Westminster and show you the dog show because these dogs are crazy cool. If you hate dogs, it's not saying don't do video. You have to do video. And we're going to go into video at a later date. But again, what I'd like for this accountability is plan one event in September, end of September, plan one event Talk to us about how the event went. Like at the end of September, we'll talk about it. Everybody can chime in and say like, hey, I took your advice. Again, you're not looking to get anything out of it. You're just getting people back together.
And it also doesn't need to be a client event. Like you could also do some of the top agents in your city and you guys meet to just brainstorm about what's happening in the market. Or it could be an agent in a nearby city that you're referring a lot to. It could be all the parents, like Butch put together the dad group. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be for clients. It could be for anything. But it's just to get out there, get networking, getting your face out there.
Yeah. And I like it, with clients because I need to reconnect. But again, have it be on your brand. Find a partner. I mean, there's millions of partners, wedding planners. Like think about who your demographic is, and then what the, wealth managers, fertility clinics. There's some like a friend of mine is like, hey, a lot of people got divorced. Like, hey, this is gonna be a private women's group, and we're gonna discuss like how financially to think about like, what are my next steps, or how do I save money if for whatever reason I were to get divorced? How do I not end up in a really bad situation? It depends, right? Because she went through a bad divorce and she's like, I don't want this to happen to my friends. So there's all sorts of different topics. Maybe it's a car. If you're into cars, like there's a car thing. So all sorts of different ideas, but I'd really like you guys to challenge yourself and say, I'm going to put together an event. I'm going to try and get, make it a goal, 50 people, and make some reason that they're all connecting. Because again, what I found is that when people, they love being around when I can connect people. Like one of the things people say all the time is like, Butch is such a connector. And so when I have these events, I spend time at the party going, you two have to meet. And when they meet, they become friends. They're like, how can I repay you? And it's just human nature, right? Like, what can I do for you? And like, no, you don't have to do anything. Just remember me. Or, if you hear somebody, and it's just a great way to just stimulate. Energy begets energy, right? And that's why I like sometimes like just doing open houses, right? Just having energy is super important. The next thing that we want to talk about is, I think, Atlanta. It's coming up. So it's coming up sooner than later. So you should be planning what you're doing in Atlanta now, right? Like, who am I going to meet? What's my target market? So let's talk about being tactical, right? And so one of the tactical things you can say is, where do most of the people that come from my city, right? If we're looking at Mike in Virginia, where do they come from, right? Where are they coming from into Virginia? And who do I need to meet in those areas, right? And then I would start putting together a list that you can use the tool. It's great. Work with your the AE, right? Like
AEM.
What is it?
AEM.
Yeah, the AEM, right? Like mine's Troy in San Francisco, but like the Find an Agent, this is a great tool. It's very broad. And what I've noticed is when I use it, I have to kind of work with them to get it tighter, or you call a manager. One of the best referral sources that's happened to me over the years is just managers from different offices. And so you could tactically call that manager in that office and say, hey, this is my demographic. Who's an agent that's like me, or, that I could work with in your office? And then I call that person. Are you coming to Atlanta? Hey, I know about a couple parties. Hey, let's get together. We do business back and forth.
There's also workplace groups for the retreat where people are saying like who's going and who's not going, and people join workplace groups so you can see that. But I think what Butch is getting to is like, find the agents that come from your feeder markets. And even if they're not going, like, okay, whatever, you call an agent that works in your feeder market to ask if they're going to Atlanta. So call all these agents and be like, hey, are you going to Atlanta? Even if they're not going, who cares? Now you're talking to them.
Yeah. So that's step one, right? So that's step one. I'm making action, right? I'm working in my feeder markets. Now you have something to, set them up in a bulk mail, right? So now in bulk mail, you tag those agents that you talk to while you're talking to them. You're filling out the contact, and then you just tag them, right? Atlanta feeder markets. So you can hit these guys up all the time without doing a ton of work, right?
But I think like for the retreat, what you should do when you talk to them on the phone is set like some sort of meeting or invite them to some sort of event. Like, oh, let's grab coffee on Thursday morning and chat about how we can work together or whatever. Or, oh, we're throwing a party, you should come. Because I think, and this is like going to get back to what one of my main points is while the retreats are so fun, like I've gone to a lot of them, they're starting to turn into just like one huge party. And like I think people are forgetting why everyone goes, which is to network. And so I get that it's like fun and a stress reliever, but especially last year, it was just like everyone was just out of control. So I think it would be very beneficial for you guys to think about these things in advance and set meetings, because if not, you guys will get persuaded. And same with me and same with Butch. Like, oh, we're throwing this party. Oh, come to this happy hour. Oh, come to this party. And everyone's drinking and you're not really networking. So I think if you can set a goal for yourself of, I'm going to meet with 5 agents that work in feeder cities. Or if it's like, I want to meet some huge agent, right? That's in your state or something. Set those meetings in advance so that you can walk away from Atlanta knowing, well, at least I did those 5 meetings. Because last year after I left Austin, I was like, what did I even do other than go to a bunch of parties?
Right. And I think that that's what we wanted to share is like, we want you to, you already are an elevated agent. You're doing the Chirag stuff to get better. A lot of people are going to go into Atlanta and they're just going to get overwhelmed by the whole thing. And our job is to make you better. And I think making you better means like throw a couple shots over your shoulder and have like real focus, but you can start doing the energy now, right? So 1 is reaching out to people in your feeder markets. 2 is maybe plan like micro events, right? Like meet for coffee, figure out like what time of day, because there's going to be those huge parties. They're going to be hard to compete with, right? Like there's just these massive parties. So like, hey, like at 6 o'clock for a happy hour, for like 1 quick hour, I'm getting a bunch of people together. Some really cool people. I want you to meet them and try and do those tactical 15 to 30 people meetings, right?
But even if you, I mean, that's like I think that would be a huge feat. Bravo if that happens. But I think even like just to set yourself up for success, a goal that I would put in place for you is set 5 meetings. Maybe there's 5 agents there. Maybe there's just 1 other agent there. But you're super friending these agents. And then they're like your friend forever, and you guys, and then you add them to your email lists and you guys are talking and you follow each other on Instagram, then you guys are friends. And now that's the person that we know in Virginia. And now we're the person you guys know in San Francisco.
Yeah. And then you can follow that up after Atlanta, right? Then you follow up and say like, hey, can you send this, this listing out to all your, to your office? Right? Or things like that. Like, hey, I'll do that for you. You do that for me. Like there's all sorts of reciprocal, cool things that you can do. I created this network group, right? Because I found that buyers were coming to me and saying, hey, I have an agent in Marin. I have an agent on the peninsula, like all the suburbs. If you're on the East Coast, all the suburbs around Boston, right? Or New York, all the boroughs. So we created this like super team. And basically what we did is we collaborated and we said we joined forces, and we created this like super team. You guys can do that. You can say, hey, I'm doing that. I remember talking to this gal, Alex up in Boston, and she's putting that together now. And it's really valuable. It's been tremendously valuable for us. And the reason why is because most people just spam out emails, right? We've talked about this. They're just spamming out like, here's my listing. Look at me, look at me, look at me. But if it goes out to your sphere of contacts, people open those letters. Well, if I grab 5 agents from the surrounding area and they send it to their clients, my open ratios are 10 times what other agent ratios are. And I show this when I present myself for pitch meetings. And I say, we've created this little formative group of all the top agents from around the Bay Area. So those are little tactical things. So we'll go back to Atlanta. So we get to Atlanta, like one of the guys that's a master, you should meet him. He's done a couple presentations. He'll come talk to your office, and I'll let you take it away here, Sydney.
Yeah, so there's an agent who's also an upgrade client, if you guys want to follow him on social media, but his name is Levi Meyer. He is an agent in Miami, Compass agent in Miami. And every year for the retreat, he just absolutely kills it. Like I think it's something about 30 to 40% of his business comes from the retreats. Like his actual business comes from the agents that he meets at the retreats. And that's because, as you guys know, Miami is like, a lot of people are moving there, have second homes there, or a lot of people have been moving there, especially over the past few years. And so he really takes advantage of that. And he is constantly meeting with other agents. Like, I don't even think he goes to the actual Compass event. I think the whole day, which, as Butch said, a lot of people don't, like they'll still go to the retreat, but they don't actually go to the events. So what he does is all day long, he's meeting with different agents. He gets invited to every single one of the parties. He goes to every single event he possibly can. I don't even think he sleeps. But what he does is he takes a photo with every single person that he meets. And after he, like, every single person that he like talks to, he takes a photo with, and then he either like texts it or emails it to himself or his assistant. And then at the end of the retreat, he has this huge thing. He'll be like, Butch Haze, San Francisco, photo of them together. So he knows and recognizes it. And then he has this full list of people that he met at the retreat. And then he follows them on social media. And then he, at the end of the retreat, follows them all on social. And then he puts them on an email. Yeah, like photos like that.
So that's what I learned. I go to retreats and I make people stamp with their card. And I take a picture. As soon as I meet them, I go, because I want to remember their face and I want to have their name. And then I take all these pictures, I group them and send them to my assistant. And then now we put them in our CRM, and we're like, tag, and say, right, the bulk email goes out. God, it was great to see you.
Then he'll send a bulk email after the fact, or an email or whatever, and say, great to meet you in Miami, or great to meet you in Atlanta. You know, so fun. Like, it goes to everyone.
Unless it's to you, and then I wrote that hand individual email myself. So anybody that's on this call, if you get that email from me, I hand wrote that specifically to you with love and adoration.
So yeah, that is a huge thing that Levi does. And like I said, he gets a lot of his business from it, but he stays in touch with those people. So like, he will send that, you know, great to meet you type of email after the fact. And then 3 months later, he'll send another email like, how's everything going? Haven't heard from you, whatever, right? To that same list of people that he met from the retreat.
$80 million a year. He's never called a client. He's never, let me say that again. He has never called a client. He's never made a cold call. He only works agents. And then what he does is he flies all over the country tactically, and he tells agents what he does. So he'll call and set up a meeting, and that's what he did. He called the sales manager in San Francisco, Kevin Patzel. Hey, can I do a presentation?
But the reason he did that was because he buddied up with Aaron Thompson in Miami at the retreat.
Yeah.
That's how he met Kevin Patzel.
So he calls Kevin Patzel, our manager, right? And he says, hey, I want to present to the office. Kevin's like, no way, I don't let agents do that. So he's like, shoot, what do I do? Kevin turns to me and goes, hey, this guy, you should do an event. You've been wanting to do an event at your listing to get agents there. Why don't you have this guy do the presentation there? Great idea, Kevin. So then the next thing you know, I was trying to get a bunch of agents to my listing. I put Levi there. We sent invitations to the entire Bay Area. And all of a sudden we had 50 agents, and he gave a presentation. And again, he looks at it, it's like, it's really funny. He's not looking for 50 people to refer him business. He's looking for 2 or 3 from each city, because everybody's different. So he tried to find, you know, older professional, the young buck, because he wants to know, like, referring back and forth. Now, granted, he has some luck in that he's in Miami, like everybody's flooding into Florida. Right. But again, tactically, what he's doing, we just share this because I find his networking 5-star. Like he is an 11 out of 10 networker. So that's one facet of, and what I love about this business is there's just so many different ways, right? And like, again, one of the things that Sydney does with Upgrade is like, her team basically helps stay in touch with all these people, right? Like her marketing team is like, how do we continue to market to just agents or to clients so that you don't have to, right? Like, how do I do social media engagement and all those things? Like when I think all the time about like one thing that I'm so blessed is I can just let it go, right? And that's what like Sydney does so well, is her team just takes it over. And again, social media, I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh my God, you're in San Diego. And I'm like, no. And they're like, but you just posted all this stuff about San Diego. And why do I do that? It's because like, I just want people to, again, people reach out, right? Like what's the whole point is it caused somebody to reach out. And then what could happen is they say, by the way, so timely, Butch, I am moving to San Diego, right? Or I just moved, like, hey, that starts a conversation.
Yeah,
right?
Like for example, with Levi, bringing it back to the events and the retreats, sometimes he will post like on his stories or on social, like, just met Butch from San Francisco, like, what a great guy, blah, blah, blah. If anyone's moving to SF, like, definitely let me know. And then who knows what could happen from that. If he's constantly posting about how he's well networked in these other major areas, then his clients could be like, oh my gosh, you have a good agent in SF. I was planning on moving there.
So here's some more tactical things, right? So now you're reaching out to agents, right? So that's your responsibility over the next couple of months. Like I'm going to start reaching out. I'm going to work with my AEM, agent experience manager. I'm going to talk to them about how to find an agent. I'm going to do some reach outs. You might create a spreadsheet with all the parties that you hear about, right? And you might share that and say like, hey, use a Google Drive. Really easy. I mean, Google Drive, it's so funny. City's going to roll her eyes. I used to hate it. It's now
it took me 2 years to get him on Google Drive, and now he promotes it.
It is a gift from God. I swear to God, but you can create literally like spreadsheets for anything and then invite anybody to see them. So again, you could just say like, hey, I'm collecting parties. Like these are all the events I'm hearing about in Atlanta, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And of course the Compass has ones. You just put it in there and say, can I share this with you? Right? Like who's going to say no? Right? And then like, you can build a list. I would create a work group chat, right? Like you could create your own little group and call it like fun people for Atlanta and say like, hey, I want to invite you into this group. We're just going to, whatever hotel you're staying at or, and then you're going to kind of use this group like, hey, I hope we can all meet up or do that. And then remember, you get all these touch points. So not only you get pre-Atlanta, you get Atlanta there and you're meeting people, you're taking pictures, take pictures of their lanyard, so you can save them. Then you can, I after every retreat, I get hundreds of gifts. One of the things that Levi I thought did well tactically is he brought a tchotchke, and I think I have it here. It was a charger, but here's these little chargers, right? Like these are really small phone chargers. What's one thing that everybody's dying for? I
have mine here too.
Yeah. So there it is, right? And he had his little briefcase or whatever. And this one's from Wells Fargo, but you can see there's tons of these, right? And they're branded. What's one thing that everybody has a problem with at retreats? The phones are dying, right? Because they're in a foreign place and it uses up battery more. I don't know why. I still don't know the science behind that. When you're out of area, that your phone loses juice faster. But like he just had them in his bag and he's like, here you go. Great to see you. Da, 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 da. Here you go. Some people sent packages after. I got a bunch of Tabasco and tequila and stuff like that. So there's all sorts of different levels of what you want to do. But you can take it to a big thing where if you want to throw an event, those are really expensive. Like I'm working with Oculus at Facebook, or whatever they call it, Meta now. But like that's a huge ask. One time a business card company gave us $10,000 and a wealth management company, Wells Fargo. I got $15,000 from Wells Fargo. We got $10,000 from this business card company to throw a big party. So again, these are all ideas that you can have if you want to throw an event. It takes about 2 to 3 months to do. You have to pick a venue, all those things, but you can also do the small stuff. So that's why we say there's something here for everybody, but don't lose the opportunity for Atlanta, and it's coming fast. So these are
I think the main takeaways from today are, if you could set up an event this quarter, whether it be big or small, because people are coming back from vacation, pre the holidays when everyone gets busy again, that would be one goal, whether it's 5 agents or 50 clients or whatever you want to do. And then the other goal is, if you guys are going to Atlanta, start writing down or creating a spreadsheet of all the agents that you want to meet and start directly calling them and setting up at least 4 or 5 meetings or events or whatever you want to do when you're in Atlanta, so you can walk away from Atlanta not only learning things from Compass, but also feeling good about who you networked with and that it was successful and worth your time and money.
And then one drink, one glass of water. One drink, one glass of water.